All right, I'm recording. I doubt anyone's. I don't even know if anyone's actually gonna join in, but let's double check everything. Do. Check, mic check. Oh, come on now. Oh, come on now. There we go. Okay. Mic seems to be working. All right, mic's working. All right, mic's working. So I just. I'm gonna turn that volume down and just go for the guess. Hopefully, I'm not gonna be able to see any chat, so it just keeps going. Anyways, let's get this over to here first. I wanted to talk about Learning Quest first. So this is where I presented this presentation first. They are a program for continued education, just continued education. They got a lot of cool stuff. I wish I went to their afternoon lecture, but my body hurt, and so I was tired. But if you go like to their calendar, you can see they got all these different classes. It's really cool. It's mostly seniors. The median age for my presentation was 70. And on TikTok, I said it was retired NASA engineers, doctors, and educators. I know there was a retired electrical engineer, at least in attendance. I don't know if he worked for NASA or not. There was a retired principal educator. She was wonderful. She was lovely. And there was, I think, some retired healthcare, but I really don't know, just to be on the level. So this is the course that I did. When you've heard the calorie, but not where it comes from, and how heat became associated with respiration. Come learn this fundamental measurement, and that's what we're going to go over today. The one right after me was NASA. Was actually NASA, and I could have stuck around and talked to them. I should have. Missed opportunities, but we are going to get into the presentation. This is going to be a deep understanding of the relationship between energy, nutrition, and fitness. I don't have a chat overlay, so I'm sorry if you join and you join into chat. I got some questions down here that I'll be answering later that I could remember from the Huntsville talk. I guess I'll get into some other stuff later, but I guess I might as well do this first. So some of the stuff I brought was like my book. It's free. You can download this at academia.edu. And you could find the link in my social media descriptions. Independent.academia.edu/ my name, Austin Sherbino. This is a copy edit. This is the first book I published. This is the world's first chemistry textbook republished. It's where the calorie was first defined. And this, I brought my poster from the American Society for Nutrition. I'll probably make another video going over that. Those are just some of the tools I did. I brought a free copy, and luckily there was enough for everyone, but everyone got a free copy of this on that presentation. So I was happy I was able to do that. Sorry for the mess in my room. I'm still unpacking. But I guess let's just get into it. All right, so this lecture will be on YouTube. If you want to watch it again, this is some of my background. They asked me, so a little preface on this presentation. My computer is broken. Hang on. I guess we're going to do this too, real quick. All right, let me show you the computer I was trying to use. Wake up. This, and it's not just because of the screen. That, so you can see it bleached out. So before it was just that black spot, and the screen wasn't bleached out, so I could still use it. So I was just working around the black spot while I was making this presentation, and it eventually just bleached out in the middle of this presentation. I sent them the original presentation, which is at the end of this one, and we'll actually get into that as well during this because I got all the time in the world. This presentation that you're seeing here is the one I threw together. I kind of Frankensteined it on the bus ride, literally the day before the presentation. I put this thing together into 50 slides because they wanted me to drop it from the original 100, and I really wanted, they wanted, and I wanted to bring up the front, or to bring the back to the front, where it's like, why does this apply to me? And so I put that in the front for this lecture, and then I have the original in the back, and we'll get into that. So these are some of my certifications and a little bit about myself. I started off as a pre-med into college. Then I switched over to mechanical engineering before our classes started. So I was a mechanical engineering freshman. While I was there, I was just better at math and everything. I took an introduction to kinesiology class. In that class, I thought it was going to be like an easy GE, nothing too big, but it turned out to completely change my life. It was taught by Pete McCall, who's notable in the exercise science field, and he did this quote: "Exercise science is engineering principles applied to biological phenomenon." And as you can see from my earlier, like, a doctor, engineer, this kind of just hit me. I was a lifelong athlete. I thought I could engineer my own strength. It was a great field. And he also told us that we're some of the first generations of exercise scientists. Most exercise scientists, most deans of exercise science before like the 2010s did not have a degree in exercise science. They had a degree in political science, they had a degree in history. The most common quality trait of a dean of exercise science was that they were the head football coach or the head of the sports program. It had nothing to do with their education. And so it was kind of cool because it's like you can explore this new field that's both historic and new, with new technology, new science, new understanding. And so I was really interested. Next semester, I switched over to be an exercise science sophomore. That's also when I first got certified through ACE, my sophomore year spring. And I had a lot of medical issues. So I'm a survivor of childhood cancer. I've had Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. They can't decide which one it is because it's most likely I have more symptoms like ulcerative colitis, but then sometimes I have bleeding in my upper GI tract, which is only in Crohn's disease. I don't have the biomarkers for Crohn's disease. Yeah, I don't need to keep getting into it. It's a lot, but it cost me a lot over the course of my life. But I'm stronger because of like the information I'm going to be showing here today, and it cost me a lot over the course of my life. My third thing is myalgia, muscle pain, just from like being hurt from sports, different sports injuries and I'm getting older now. I'm 33. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't have rubber bones. All those old pains, all those old scars are starting to, crystallize and feel good. But I kept trying to push through medical. I ended up switching into an interdisciplinary study recommended by the school so they can get me out of there. But I took it as an opportunity to learn things so I could be better at managing gyms. So I studied recreation hospitality management, exercise science, and psychology, focusing on industrial and organizational psychology, which is like why people buy things and why people want to work for you. And that kind of ties into exercise science because then it's like, what is motivation to work? What is motivation to do these things? How do you get people motivated? And then, of course, why do people want to buy your motivation versus other people's motivation? On the right side is all my different certifications, and I'm going to be going a lot slower this time just because I kind of know the timing. First presentation, I rushed a little bit at the end, but we'll get this one nice and slow. Certified personal trainer through ACE and NASM, or National Strength and Conditioning Association, and I recertified through ACE after that 2 years. I got the USA Sports Performance Coach, which is the USAW, USA Weightlifting Level 1. I don't know what it's called anymore. You also USA World Rugby Coach, which was at the time USA Rugby Coach Level 200. I'm a corrective exercise specialist, and I was certified as a technical strength and conditioning facilitator. I think that expired though. but maybe not. I don't know if that one expires. I'll have to look it up. And so this was for a senior group, and so you'll see a lot of reference to this. But this is my main quest, for Learning Quest. How do we get stronger, or how can we engineer our own strength? And this is comes from an understanding of nutrition, of how our body works, and even psychology and how our minds work, to really understand all the different ways how we can engineer our own strength. So that's a really big field, and so we really need to dial it in. And so let's get on to one topic. Let's try to explain the origin and philosophy of calories. Calories are supposed to explain this energy behind nutrition. And so if we want to get through, I was much better at this at the Learning Quest actually, but if we want to understand strength, then I guess some things will be better, some things will be worse. But sorry for all this over meta commentary. I'll try to save that for the end. And we'll explain the origin and philosophy of calories. And so I already knew the Atwater system from college, understanding learning nutrition in college, all my certifications. You understand the 494 Atwater system, or you may have heard of it. I didn't really have a good understanding of quantum mechanics and physics, besides biochemistry classes that I took in college. And so I used LibreText to understand quantum mechanics, as well as YouTube channels such as these. I used many others besides these, but these are some really good ones that I wanted to include to understand different quantum mechanics. And most of my research at this point has been done on Lavoisier, who came up with the calories. So it's not just about understanding. I'm also trying to challenge my understanding. When I pulled out my retirement and went to the 91st annual meeting of the Southeastern section of the American Physical Society, which is the physics community, basically, to see if I understood thermodynamics like I thought I did about these calories and about human energy, which we'll get into later. And I got some good challenges. I got some good, I didn't get any, no one was able to disprove my theory. It was all I kind of just talked about it. And some people agreed, some people said, well, hypothetically, or that's just not the way, or should we even bother? But technically, those aren't valid arguments on the science. Is this true or is this not? And I seem to be touching on something that was. So then I put in a bunch of abstracts so I could present at these different conferences. One of them was from the American Society for Nutrition, where I did this poster right here, which we can get into at a later time. Then the next presentation was at Learning Quest, which is this one that I'm doing again. My next presentation after that is going to be at the fall at the American Chemistry Society. I got a notable, I'm representing the history section as well for a little SciMix, so it's cool. It's a poster kind of going over the same stuff we're going to go over today. After that one, we're going to the World Obesity and Weight Management Congress, where we're going to be presenting as well as doing a workshop with doctors from around the world. And then again, another American Chemistry Society meeting where hopefully I'll just be able to talk about the philosophy and history of Antoine Lavoisier and kind of take a step back for a second. That one's pending right now. And so we're just jumping right into it. There's two key takeaways from my research. First, calories are a rule of thumb, not a law of physics, not a law of thermodynamics. So they're essentially what you would call, like you can see in these slides, a heuristic model, which is just a mental shortcut, a way to simplify things and get a rough estimate, basically, so that way we can just continue with our work. And so we can go to define the philosophy of calorimetry. It's a method of this is what they're trying to do. I want you to understand this is what they're trying to do with calorimetry. A scientific method of measuring the change in energy of a system, such as the human body, by analyzing the heat exchange between the system and its surroundings. This can be done directly by measuring the heat released by the body, or indirectly by analyzing the respiratory gas exchange. And heat by the body is also the body of nutrients that's being combusted. So like the heat that's being released from the body of food, not just the human body, even though I know it says the human body, but you can measure the heat of the I need to learn more about calorimetry, kind of like what they're trying to assess here. I don't though, because what I'm about to show you is going to change it. Because it's woo-woo because it's on faulty grounds. This is what we're trying to do. This is how we have defined the calorie, a measurement of the energy content of food. And The Britannica, a well-known established encyclopedia in their physiology section of metabolism, claims that mitochondria is the cellular site of respiratory combustion, first clearly demonstrated in whole animals by Lavoisier. So we're going to look into that. This is the nutrition calorimetry. This is the science. This is how it's done. It's basically in the middle. You can see the food is dehydrated and then it's put into a chamber, and that chamber is burned. On the left, you can see what is modern day calorimetry, and so those are like the systems that are used, and basically how we measure the heat exchange from the body, from the energy being released. And on the right is the first calorimeter ever conceived by Lavoisier and Pierre-Simon de Laplace. That is how you spell his name. I know people sometimes just do the capital L Laplace, but this is actually how you spell his name. I think you just can't capitalize, you can't have a lowercase in front of a proper noun. And so it got all kind of confused. And so this is where we get the first experimental evidence for respiration combustion. And I will do a little meta. I hate this slide. It's so busy. There's so much words. I had better ones, but this is one of the Frankenstein pieces. But in 1779, Crawford is credited with the first demonstrations of the chemical connection between respiration and carbon combustion. He showed that they both release CO2, they both release water, and they both release heat. But he does later on write that he does not literally think fire is a source of energy. He just notes that these things are connected. But they will later be used as justification that respiration and combustion are the same process. In 1783, Pierre-Simon de Laplace and Lavoisier would state that conclusion, would say that respiration is a form of combustion with the world's first calorimeter. But calorie is not defined until 6 years, or I guess this is 10 years later. No, sorry, that's from Crawford. It is 6 years because they're the 83. 6 years, or I guess I know I'm just reading it and trying to go off that. Sorry. So this is the experiment that respiration is there for combustion over 10 hours. The candle was melted candle was heated, lit, and was allowed to extinguish, and all the heat in the chamber sat there until all the ice stopped melting. And it melted after 10 hours, it melted about 10.38 ounces of ice. A guinea pig was put into a chamber designed for animal respiration, surrounded by a wall of mercury, but still having the air measured. The guinea pig was in there for, I think, 45 minutes. The second one was in there for an hour and a half, and the third one did not have the time disclosed. And from those timelines, they estimated it would be about 13 ounces of ice. And so they thought, the heat is dissipated through the arms, or there's all these other excuses why that 2 ounces is acceptable, and so it's perfectly acceptable. And that is literally the evidence we have that respiration is combustion from Lavoisier, and that the Britannica cites. So the origin of calories was this idea of measuring ice melt. And so if you were in a room that was at freezing point, so the ice wouldn't melt normally, and then you put, I guess I should explain the heat. I did this so much better on the presentation. That's funny. I guess I speak better in front of people than I do in front of a camera. Yeah, I speak way better in front of people. That's funny. Okay, so the ice, when ice melts, the water on the surface of the ice maintains its temperature, at least what Lavoisier can measure. And so ice melts in layers based on how much heat is applied. When the ice maintains its temperature, it suggests that the heat is pushed straight through to the ice. This is how you can read it in the Memoir of Heat. This is a summary. And so as more heat is applied, more layers of ice will melt, and so it will release more water. It's essentially the idea. So if you're able to put a reaction into an ice, into a ball of ice, and it melts ice, you can see how much heat is released by the quantity of ice. You would have a relative scale. But then we go into but then we go into calories are not a real substance. I didn't do it like I wanted to here. Okay. I did this much better in person. This is still the same thing. I just was a better speaker. calories were never this real idea. It was just this abstraction. Some sources will cite that it's meant to be the fluid that permeates all things. That's not true. Lavoisier claimed it could be that, or it could be from the particles interacting with each other. He pays no mind to either one. Just because the fluid that permeates, the phlogiston that permeates, was the most common of the time, he spoke of that mostly. But he still did entertain the idea of small particles being the reason of heat. It's incredible, this man's mind. This is the world's first chemistry textbook. This is Traité élémentaire de chimie. I don't know how to say that, but the elements of chemistry. It was translated to Elements of Chemistry by Robert Kerr. And that's the one I did the copy edit of, was Robert Kerr's first English translation from 1790. But it is for the calories were for the analysis of all materials, how they expand under heat and how they absorb heat, or like their specific heat capacity is also words that are being introduced at this time by people like Joseph Black. And so there's this revolution about our understanding of heat at this time. And Antoine Lavoisier uses calories to kind of as a reference point by using water as the medium reference point. And in this book, when he first talks about calories, he also steps back from his conclusion that respiration is a form of combustion. I have the full quote in here later, but he just decides that he didn't have enough evidence to for sure conclude all these biological facts. He stuck more with like material and inorganic chemistry, essentially. He did organic chemistry too, because he worked on plants and stuff, but more material chemistry, I would say, than human. After Lavoisier was guillotined in 1794 during the French Revolution, and it would be the works of these gentlemen to take him up. This is also a very busy slide. I hate this slide. Justus von Liebig would take on the mantle. He studied in France in 1820, and he was the first to describe metabolism as a chemical process of biology. He's considered the father of organic chemistry and the first to introduce chemical laboratories, like your labs, basically, into where you get hands-on experience, into the university. His student, Carl von Voigt, is considered the father of modern nutrition. By me and by many others. It's not just me. But he's said to perfect calorimetry, measuring all gas and waste of a subject, and first using the gram calorie measurements, and much more. Like, one of the things he understood was that oxygen does not drive metabolism or body heat, but it's metabolism that drives oxygen intake. So with a fire, if you add oxygen, the fire gets hotter. But with a body, if you breathe faster, you don't get hotter. And so that's the first time he's like, respiration is combustion doesn't fully align. But his student, Max Rubner, would reconfirm that respiration is combustion, or recombine it in the mind of the scientific community when he developed the isodynamic law of nutrition, which described the 494 rule of protein, nutritional fats, and carbohydrates like we know today. And that was done off of starving animals. The idea that the body can maintain body temperature with carbs, fats, and proteins by roughly a ratio of 494, or can produce 4 kilocalories per gram of carbohydrate when freezing and starving, and 9 for nutritional fats, 4 for protein. And so at the same time this is happening, we are redefining what energy is. The same time these guys are experimenting. We're not doing this classic combustion kind of mentality. I was so much better in person. It's good practice. So we were it's better when I'm not looking at it. Honestly, I think that's the problem. When I'm just talking about it, I speak a lot easier. But when I'm reading it, I want to read it, and then I'm like, yeah, this, and then yeah, that. Okay, good to know. So, but Maxwell, Boltzmann, Gibbs, all are redefining the way we're going to understand energy. And by the time, and it's important to understand, because I'm just got to get this order right. 1897, J.J. Thomson reports on his discovery of the new elementary particle discovered from cathode rays, the electron. This would go on to revolutionize our understanding of chemistry. But the USDA already had the calorie adopted into its system, the same Atwater system that I've been taught as a personal trainer and through all my certifications over 125 years later. But as we know from modern physics, like this energy is not the same. This is a really poor performance. I'm sorry. I had this much better down. So American nutrition, Atwater came to Germany, or went to Germany. He studied with Voigt and Rubner, and he learned the calorimetry, and he learned the 494 system while it was being developed. He brought that back to America, and he started talking about it publicly. And it would be Dr. Lulu Hunt Peters, because it's not just scientists that make things popular. Popular things make things popular. She's a very popular and influential woman in medicine, especially in Los Angeles. She wrote a best-selling book that talks about the Atwater system of energy, the 494 rule. I hate this slide so much. It's so busy. But she's the one who popularized it. I bet you this presentation gets better when we get into the presentation I already have. And so what Dr. Peters was missing and what Atwater was missing is the understanding of modern physics. They didn't have, this has never been integrated with calorie theory, apparently. The idea of the atom producing energy from the electron, from its spin, and not from this combustion principle. That's very vague. But no one here wrote about calories except for Schrodinger, who called them absurd. But then he also called the exchange of foodstuff absurd. That anything should need to be exchanged would be absurd. But then his friend pointed out, this is all in chapter 6, his friend pointed out that the foodstuffs, you can't, we can't get energy from carbon dioxide or from diamonds. It has to be in a certain structure. It has to be oxygen. It has to be carbon in a certain form, the nutrients. And he conceded that maybe it is important to know the food stuff, and maybe it is important to know the energy. And so I think this is a big point to why we continue to use calories, is because established people say that it may be useful, and other people take it to mean literal and true as well. And so this is one of the biggest proponents of calorie theory that we default to unknowingly. It's going to be Ansel Keys, the developer of the K ration and the Minnesota starvation experiment. I still need to go over this experiment. The publications from 1950, and it's about the biology of starvation, I think is the book. I got to read it. But essentially what he found was that between vitamins, proteins, and calories recovered men the most. But even then, reading it, it was like muscle was the hardest thing for them to put back on. It's really interesting to read about just to understand human biology. These guys suffered for something, might as well study it, try to figure it out. And then we still use calories to this day, until today, where I'm trying to tell you we're using something different, or that it's just not the right, it's not the literal word of physics. It's not the law of nature. And so what is the law of nature? How does this work? And so I gotta stop saying nutrition, fitness, and health is determined by material exchange, changing orbitals, and electromagnetic pressures. So you could see some different kind of orbital conformations on the left. If you've never taken an organic chemistry or a college level chemistry class, some of this stuff is going to look very scary. If you look to the right, you'll see something more familiar: atoms, electrons. Their names are in the center, in the nucleus. As you can see, they're markers. And then the electrons are orbiting. In the middle is basically a protein sheet. It's like the same thing as the right. So you'll see the different chemicals, the carbon, the nitrogen. The R's are chains of other molecules. Basically, you could think of just R is a replacement, will be replaced later. And so these perform, these are magnetic, like oxygen is magnetic, hydrogen is magnetic, and so as these form in chains, their electromagnetic pressures will turn them and form them into helixes, sheets, or some other kind of shape that has a functional ability, and that's actually how your body works. And so we're trying to get into this question, so calories are supposed to be a measurement of the energy content of food, but energy is just the ability to do work. So then how do zero-calorie nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and water provide support and function without providing energy in their domain of molecular biomechanics? Because the biomechanics of nutrients that are non-caloric exists. There's osmosis, cell transport, minerals are needed for these things, hydration, for electrolytes, and for even nerves firing. They need electrolytes, or they need minerals. And coenzymes and cofactors, like vitamins, are needed for enzymes to function properly in your body. And so they're not combusting, they're not reacting with oxygen and food, they're not doing anything else besides existing with their electromagnetic pressures. And we can really clearly see this from the calories from water versus the biological work from water. If energy is just the work from a system, the calories from water is impossible. We would only measure the heating element ability to raise the water temperature. The work from water is osmosis, hydration, pH balance, temperature regulation. Hydrolysis is how ATP is able to fire in your muscles. The Krebs cycle, in order to produce this cofactors, needs water to decompose because it needs the oxygen from water. And so what we come to understand is that all nutrients supply energy to the body. Energy in biology is from the combinations of molecules and elements. This is actually where the energy, it's not like there's caloric energy and then there's non-caloric energy. No, energy comes from all the nutrients. Calories are the wrong measurement to use for human health, nutrition, and exercise. So then we need a chemical equivalent of what would be these calories. And so it would be this acetyl, as you see in the middle. It says acetyl coenzyme A, but without the coenzyme, it's just the acetyl group. Proteins, carbs, and fats uniquely can turn into this acetyl, unlike any other nutrient. It's a two-carbon structure. And so this acetyl can be used as body fat. It can be used for a whole bunch of different processes, but the important thing is it is what is used as body fat, and it is the only thing we get from protein, carbs, and fat. It is the connection between caloric energy and what we use in aerobic respiration. Because remember, there's also muscle energy that's separate from this acetyl energy, but it still technically would be under the umbrella of caloric energy. Using calories makes it much more confusing. And so what we really have here is a thermodynamic duality of macros. So the 494 rule really applies to static thermoregulation, like what your body is able to do with it to maintain body temperature, like when you're not moving. That's what static thermoregulation is. How do we maintain body temperature? And it happens, just so happens, it happens in the mitochondria. We'll get into this later on the deeper part. But the other thermodynamic process is going to restructure the ATP, and that's going to be later used as exercise. The thing with exercise is that it has heat as a byproduct, but heat is not the driver of muscle action. It's just a byproduct of the chemical reaction. And so energy from nutrition, a fresh understanding. A nutrient, and this is not just my definition, a nutrient is a substance from the environment that our body uses to maintain and promote the health and function of the body and its biological systems. So this is going to include proteins, nutritional fats and oils, carbohydrates, nucleotides. A lot of people haven't heard about them, but they're what make up DNA, RNA, and ATP. Fat-soluble vitamins, right now, nucleotides are conditionally essential. When you're sick, your body needs them more. They really support immune function. Fat-soluble vitamins, water-soluble vitamins, microminerals, major minerals, water, and oxygen. And we'll get into some of these ones like the nucleotides, the oxygen, and the water in just a second, but also to be considered is light. Light is a substance from the environment. And so, again, if we're going to go back to this definition, a substance from the environment that our body uses to maintain and promote health and function of its biological systems, you can get rickets, you get vitamin D deficiency if you don't get enough light. Getting enough light is essential to human and biological health. At least human biological health, for sure. And so if you could take everything light does and put it into a molecule that we could eat and get the same effects, we would call that an essential nutrient. So light as a substance, even though it's not a material, like as in a molecule, it is still a substance from the environment. We have to consider it as a nutrient. And I tried to do this a couple times, like put light into different areas. I couldn't figure out anywhere else to put light. I think it's just its own class of nutrient, the easiest way, because we can get into fermions and bosons. I can't, but maybe you can. But essentially all those are still substances, no matter what it is, and light is still a substance. And so understanding the underrepresented nutrients, nucleotides, there is support to make it considered an essential nutrient, not just a conditional essential nutrient, from the Journal of Functional Foods, and they were citing immune regulation, GI regulation, and just the general necessity of it. Oxygen is not typically considered a nutrient, but it is a substance from the environment, and by using oxygen, if we're able to measure the ability of oxygen to enter the cells or improve the ability of oxygen to enter the cells, we can infer and imply that the body has a general ability to deliver nutrients to the cells really well. And so we can use oxygen delivery to the cells as a gold standard for nutrient delivery. Like for example, if you have someone who has really good oxygen delivery but is diabetic, so they have just poor absorption into the cells, but now we know they have good oxygen delivery, we know that also means like when they get insulin, they will get it distributed through their body better, hopefully. It's the idea. But respiratory quotient is one of those things that doesn't have to change, because a lot of measurements are going to have to change. If we're not using calories anymore, what do we measure? We'll get into that in actually just a second. In water, it depends on who's defining it. Is a nutrient or not. At water, defined nutrients is everything left after water and trim, like bones and tendons are removed, just to get to the nutriment. But under this definition, water is a substance from the environment, and we need it, and it does work. And so this new understanding of modern nutrition explains and maintains the last 110 years of nutrients discovery and understanding beyond calories. Explains how vitamins, minerals, and water function. Explains how food processing influences composition and individuality and measurement as material compatibility with genetic compatibility. It maintains antioxidants, because how would you explain their functioning before caloric? They're just, it works with modern physics. Phytochemicals, zoochemicals, RDAs, adequate intakes, recommended daily allowances, adequate intakes, which is like how much you're supposed to have, and upper limits, like which is your toxicity, don't go above that, and deficiency levels. These are all still maintained. And so now we can get into the modeling. This is all early stuff. I'm going to be This is my introduction year in 2027. I'm going to have a review year, basically like talking about everything I've learned from this introduction. And then hopefully in 2030, I'll have a final release, which will talk about all this stuff in full. So this is really just to get the message out there and get people to start talking about it, thinking about it, so that way we can change how we measure health and nutrition and fitness, because it's important. Because when people come to you and ask you like, how do I lose weight, and you're saying count your calories, it's not actually a valid law of physics and thermodynamics. So you can't say it's a law of thermodynamics and it's as easy as counting calories, because what I'm explaining here is it's not. Anyways, here's the model. This is the highest level for like medical use, for really advanced trying to track the nutrient. If you were to track the nutrient, these are all the steps you would have to track it. You'd have to track it from the intake, which is just the food you eat like normal, but just because you ate the food doesn't mean it gets absorbed into your body. It has to get absorbed into your body. And so we have to check this absorption, and that absorption also follows the nutrient not just into your body but into the cell, like through all those different transport channels, how it is absorbed. And absorption works hand in hand with call. Call is essentially absorption from the cellular perspective. It is what are the signals that we're promoting, what is the lipid bilayer accept, like what are the chemical receptors that are available for use or absorption, or what's the physics of the cell that allows for these nutrients to come in and out. Use is just because the cell calls on it or tries to put it in the right place doesn't mean it's used to the right function. It could be a problem somewhere else in the chain, but we need to make sure that that nutrient is used in the proper processing like we wanted it to. It's not like we can watch it, but we can make some assumptions based on like function or dysfunction. And then disposal, we need to know where that nutrient goes, where it's disposed of. This includes stuff like antioxidants, byproducts, like if a carbohydrate is not being disposed of properly, it's going to start tearing through the capillaries. A simpler model to use is grams in, called, and used. It makes it a lot easier. So this used to be input output, where it'd be calories in, calories out, right? And so now we're doing input is going to be grams in and grams called, and then output is grams used. So I'll explain. Grams in is like your normal intake, and it's basically puts like intake and absorption together. And well, absorption's kind of divided between in and called, but grams in, basically think of it as like measuring your grams of food, grams of nutrients that you get in food, macro and micro grams. What are you eating? Grams called. So your body is always telling your body what to do, what to replace. We can't control it completely with exercise, but we can influence it. We can mediate it. We can tell it to grow. Like you can't grow a muscle just by thinking about it. You have to give it a physical stimulus. But we can reliably give people physical stimuluses and have their muscles grow, like in a normal system, and usually with most people. Even if it takes longer, it's still, unless you have a real, like, I think you would have to die if you couldn't strengthen your muscles, because your diaphragm isn't, if you don't know, fun fact, if you suffocate, if you die of starvation, you die of suffocation because your body doesn't have enough energy to contract your diaphragm muscles. So you just literally, if you die of starvation, you die because you can't breathe, because your body doesn't have enough energy. So you can build muscle and maintain muscle because you have to maintain breath. And so there's like, to what degree, to what magnitude, to what signals, to how we have to call your body to get the same responses, that can be different. But the same, there is the call there. Your body can do, the function of the body is represented by the anatomy of the body. And so as the, I gotta get breathing practice good. As the body tells your body where to put the nutrients, it assimilates it. I swear to God, I was so much better at this on the live. I wish my video wasn't corrupted, because I'm just stumbling so much on this. So much better at this on the live. I wish my video wasn't corrupted. Grams in food, grams called exercise, grams used is weight loss, weight gain, strength, skill, speed, whatever you want to measure, whatever your body can do, however you look, feel, and are able to do is grams used. It's the end result, because your body functions as a result of the anatomy. And so how your body uses nutrients and how it restructures itself will be demonstrated in grams used. And so this is the modeling that I'm going to be working with over the next couple of years slowly. So you could take a screenshot. These are the replacements for the gram standard. This is how you measure different how you generally measure your food intake. Teenagers need an extra 10% of at least protein, but probably of everything. And so it's, the protein is from Tanner Stokes, and it's from a human performance perspective. It's essentially at what point of our protein do we start to plateau from a human perspective, human performance perspective, because everything after that plateau we can assume will start to be converted or will favor more into acetyl conversion. And so what do we need minimum to maintain health? And so that's that 0.5, and the fat, you got the 0.5 to 1 gram. I don't recommend going under 1 gram, but for weight restricted athletes, they recommend these minimums, not going below those. And so I am also going to recommend these minimums, don't go below those. Carbohydrates is the only nutrient on here that is non-essential, and so it's the one you can mediate and mess with the most. You want to get your carbohydrates mostly from vegetables. I suggest lentils, peas, and beans the most, and that also help you get some of that protein in. But yeah, this is essentially the gram standard. I divided it up into a couple different groups. Like you got just base health, weight restricted, and build muscle. So that's like if you're an athlete or if you're a bodybuilder, you want to minimize your fat, body fat, and you want to look the best, or you need to cut weight for a boxing or a wrestling match. If you just want to lose weight, but you also don't want to get weaker, then we do weight loss and minimize muscle loss. And these proteins, according to Tanner Stokes, seems to maintain muscle mass and muscle strength. And so the rest we kind of just like fill out. And build muscle, weight unrestricted, just as much protein as you want. Get that fat in there, and then get some carbs. Kind of just like make sure you hit your fat marker. Make sure you hit at least 1 gram per kilogram, or 0.45. They're important to hit. I hate talking into a computer screen. I hate it so much. Athletic development, even like I hate voice calls too online, like the delay. Anyways. Like development, it's essentially the same thing. Once you get enough carbohydrates, you're paying your heating bill, because your body needs to maintain a certain temperature in order for it to maintain its chemical reactions. That's why I'll break down the protein to maintain that body temperature. So if you get enough carbohydrates, and even if you're working, you get enough healthy fats, your body can maintain its temperature. You just need that 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram, that 0.5 to 0.7 grams per pound. really to develop, to get your muscle growth. Over 1.6, it shows a plateau usually. And so if you're trying to, like, if you don't have all the money in the world, these are the ranges to help you save money, because this is where you need to be. So it's not just about these carbs, because like different things can work for different people. Like I'm lactose intolerant, so if I get all my nutrients from milk, I will still get those nutrients, but I'll also get a lot of inflammation that comes with that. And so that's the idea behind Survive to Thrive, the individual spectra of health responses. So allergies, tolerances, medical conditions, you can still get those nutrients. Maybe it might not kill you today. Some people it might kill today. I know people who had like protein allergies, and it would kill them. Peanut allergies, it'll kill them. But if you have a mild allergy and you have to eat, like you're starving, you can eat it and survive, hopefully. But then we get on the other side of the spectrum. It's like, okay, so then what are the foods that help me have the least amount of inflammation? Are there foods that help me recover from inflammation? Are there foods that help me set up to be as strong as I can? And that's that spectrum of survive to thrive, because everything outside that spectrum is just not food. And this is something I really encourage, the mood food log. And so record when you feel bad and the sensations. Remember what food you ate in the last 2 or 3 days, and it could even have to go back a week. Like if you think about a hangover as a marker, it can last a couple of days. And sometimes you feel good one day, and then all of a sudden it hits you the day after. And so we can't just assume that what we ate today is how we feel from today, or how we feel today is from the food we ate today. It's from the food that we've eaten from the last week or even longer. But we don't need to check longer than a week, really. So we're looking for correlations. Be careful in checking for causations, because remember, if you're telling yourself like, oh, I'm trying to see if does Taco Bell cause this inflammation in me, the only way to test it is to eat Taco Bell. And so you're jumping into the alligator water. You know what I mean? Like, and you're asking to get bit, so that way you can find out if alligators bite. Like, essentially what you're doing. Like, be careful when you're testing things that can make you more sick. Like, remember, I said I had Crohn's disease and stuff, and I've done this a lot. It can be very painful, and it's very exhausting. It's brutal, but sometimes you have to do it if there's no other way to figure it out if you can eat this or not. Or like in what combinations. Like I can't have Red Bull, but I can have Monster. I can eat ribeyes, but eating too much sirloin, a leaner cut meat, will get me sick. I can eat Great Value and Hostess white donuts, but I can't eat Little Debbie donuts. Walmart baked goods have a lot of butter, I think, in them or something, but they don't agree with me well either. And so it's like, it can even come down to the store location, because it could be the people who are making it, the way that they're told to make it, the ingredients that they buy. And so it could differ from store to store, or it could differ from chain to chain, like a burger at McDonald's and a burger at Burger King might have two different effects. But again, we want to kind of go for more raw foods, whole foods, so more like the sirloin ribeye, salmon versus pink salmon. How about some mackerel and sardines? I'm going to try just for flavor. And then there's also the idea of, like, I didn't mention this before, but it's not about how it tastes, it's about how it makes you feel. And so if you could eat something that tastes terrible, but then after the flavor went out your mouth, you felt great, would you choose that over something that tasted great but then made you feel terrible? And when you're younger, you'll choose something that tastes great. But as you get older, you want something that makes you feel great. And so that's what we're looking for more than anything. At least that's what I want. And so that's what I support. Personalized nutrition, so this kind of gets more into the math of it. So understanding grams in, so measurement of food composition. Fish versus lentils, baked versus fried, boiled versus baked and fried. The type of seasoning, what kind of seasoning is a pre-bought? What kind of is there sugar in it? Because like pre-bought mixes for me don't agree with me. The sugar, the spices, I don't know. Maybe it's what they clean their equipment with that gets contaminated into the food. I don't know, but I know that I get just like single like parsley, thyme, oregano, and I kind of build my own spice like on the fly. And this is like a forward-looking response. So while you measure your food, you're checking your mood and everything as you go. And so you're measuring your food, and then as time continues, you're kind of just making note of like, I feel good, I feel fine, I slept good, I slept great. This is about the time where I got a conversation or a question about. This is the time when I got sleep in the ICU model, but I can go for the second question, just for negative or positive. So when you're using ICU, it's not just for this food journal. It's not just about feeling bad. It's also about feeling good. When you feel good, you can write it down like, wow, today I felt really great. And then you check all the food that you ate before. And what you're doing is you're just trying to find these correlations. It could have been something else. Maybe the air was a little bit better. Maybe you got full of endorphins because your kid came to see you or something. Wow, today was great. I felt great. My body felt great. Check the food. What food helped you feel great? And then can we eat that food again? And do we continue to feel great when we eat that food? When we feel bad and we eat that good food, does it help us recover? That's how you find your recovery food. That's how I found mine, with like salmon, peas, sushi, and miso soup. Is like when I need to recover, like when my GI tract is bad, I will go out and eat sushi, ginger, miso soup, the green tea. It's calming, it's soothing, it's light, it's perfect. The only thing I sometimes question is the rice, but I'd take it with what I got. Or I'll cook like salmon at home. In my mind, I think the omega-3s and the oils help a lot, but maybe they do, maybe they don't. But at least it consistently helps me feel better. Or my big soup, like I make this big vegetable soup, and that makes me feel the best. And so, but it is just a long process, it's a little tedious to make. I do have it up I think on YouTube. I think I got it up somewhere. But anyway, so you look for trends over time, basically the food composition and everything. The personal adaptation with grams used. So this is tracing it back. So we do independent measurements at discrete time. So like at this time, 1:00 p.m., I feel bad, or I feel great, whatever it is. I woke up at this time with good or bad. And then, or like I was able to lift this weight. I was able to run this far. I was able to do this, that, and whatever. And then we look back and we see what we ate and what we did. And because that's what helped shape our body to get to this position. And so we could find trends that way as well, where we're finding how does this fitness work and how does this nutrition work. And that's kind of how you get a better trend analysis instead of just using like Seco. You can use the ICU model, and I'm going to be developing some programs to help with this as well. Like I'm all right at Python, and I can do some SQL, so I'll be trying to get like some actual data put together. And this kind of, some people come to me and say like, what works for you doesn't work for me. We're all a little bit different, and somewhat to that I agree, but these are the 4 laws that I go to argue my point, and I consider these real laws of nature, and I hope you will too, in the sense that you will challenge them, and if they don't appear to be correct, you will show me where and why. So the first law of nature is of exercise science is you can get stronger. Survival requires recovering strength. In order to survive, in order to live, you have to use resources on a cellular level. Even when we get down to it, you have to use the oxygen you breathe, and you have to use the food that you ate in order to move and to create energy and strength. And so that needs to be replaced in order to continue surviving. So that can be technically a form of strength, because you're depleting resources and then you're regrowing resources. And so that growth again is the strength. And so even if it doesn't appear that you're getting stronger, as long as you're surviving, that is a form of strength. And you could technically get stronger as long as you continue to survive. Even if you get stronger and you're falling downhill, you're still up, as long as you can try to keep up, and maybe we can get an upward trend. Genetically identical twins can respond to the same stimulus differently. So this isn't something to expect, but it's something to consider as true. It means that no 2 events are technically the same. Even if they were to eat the same foods, be in the same place their entire life, always do the same thing. One's going to be on the left, one's going to be on the right. One's going to eat that steak, one's going to eat another steak. One could be sick, one could be not. One breathes that air, one breathes the other air. One got some sunlight, one got another sunlight. There's just minor variables that could lead to a different kind of response of the same stimulus. So it's something to expect, and it acknowledges that everyone is different at the end of the day. But we are not so different. You are not different from the universe. You are not above or below or tangential to the universe. You're a product of the universe. So you're bound by the same laws of physics as the rest of the universe. So if atoms can't be explained by classical thermodynamics and calories try to explain the energy behind nutrition with classical thermodynamics, then calories are not a real measurement of human energy because nutritional energy comes from the atoms and molecules that we only learn from the modern physics. And so we're bound by the same laws of physics that we've only known since the 1900s, not the laws of physics that we thought we knew from the 1800s. So let's get these right. And putting all three of these together, specific environmental signals create specific physiological responses. That did get cut off. And so those specific physiological responses, I bet you that got cut off in the presentation too. That's so annoying. If you were to lift weights versus if you were to run, we would expect you to build more muscle lifting weights than running. Running, we would expect more cardio, more lean or aesthetic. If you were to run versus to swim, your heart will get thicker on the left ventricle if you were to run, and your heart will get longer if you were to swim. So specifically, what you do to your body will create specific physiological responses. The task is to figure out how, and like how your body answers the call. And so that's understanding Graham's called as exercise signaling. So that's understanding like we're communicating with the body, we're trying to tell it what we want it to build, where we want it to build, and understanding how each person's body interprets the same signal maybe a little bit differently. And this is, I try to throw this in there to try to highlight the importance of understanding healthy mitochondria, sarcopenia and aging, because my median age was 70. And so this is the muscle degradation from old age is attributed to mitochondrial damage. There's nothing like physical activity that promotes mitochondrial health. There's no drug, there's nothing else besides physical activity that can promote mitochondrial health. And the trick to here we go. What to call for support fat loss or exercise. So even in the caloric model, this would still be true. It's mitochondrial activation, mitochondrial density, and neuromuscular activation. All your nerves have mitochondria. All your muscles have mitochondria. Activating them has them call for those acetyl groups to be used in aerobic respiration. So by improving the ability and activation and density, which is done through neuromuscular activation, then we can improve the ability of the mitochondria on our body. And so mitochondrial activation, mitochondrial density is done through neuromuscular activation is one way to do it, essentially. It's one of my preferred ways. That'll be mitochondrial activation. The other part of mitochondrial density is creating the demand for oxygen use, and that's going to be used through a ventilatory threshold training model that I've developed. Really, any cardio model will move towards increasing mitochondrial density, but I create a model that's supposed to signal ventilatory thresholds on a 1-to-2 ratio. It's kind of it's adopted from ACE's cardiorespiratory fitness program for personal trainers, because their cardiorespiratory fitness program is pretty great. But essentially, each muscle fiber connects to a neuron. There's like 500,000 muscle fibers in your bicep alone. There's 1 million in your calf. These are all the different parts of your brain that it activates while you're learning new motor, while you're recruiting new motor movements. So one of the things that'll work deep into your brain, the hippocampus, it'll work the motor unit up the top, that's the dark green, the M1. And it'll go down to the hippocampus, which will coordinate with the cerebellum and the motor unit and the sensory unit about how to move the body and how it wants these new skills to develop. And as the skill becomes more efficient, the hippocampus will become quieter and it'll move more into the cerebral cortex of the motor unit and the cerebellum. And so the keys to mitochondrial activity are movement, trying new sports, learning new things, getting out there. I promised the Ninja Obstacle Academy I would include it because that's a great way to increase neuromuscular activation. You're learning new skills, new ways to move your body, new ways to use strength, and that'll increase the mitochondrial activation just through that activity. And so the aims of modern nutrition are, I feel like I'm missing a slide. I am missing a slide. And so the aims of modern nutrition, something got deleted. All right. But so the aims of modern nutrition now are outreach. So like this live hosting. I don't know if anyone's watching, but thank you if anyone is. It's cool if no one is. Everyone's got to start somewhere. But I'm going to continue with copies and media derivatives. So I already did Lavoisier. That's this one. And then I'm going to get into Rubner, Voigt, Liebig. I want to get into everyone. At least read them and have an English version available. And start my own little library of start with nutrition and expand outwards. And then I'll get into Dudley Allen Sargent, get into fitness, and then expand from there. But I really got to get this physics and nutrition stuff done. It's a gold mine. We got to still check out like basal metabolic rate, METs, like what are we trying to measure, what can actually be salvaged, because those measurements are based in calories, but they're trying to measure something real. And so they're just using the wrong methodology. So we might be able to get to what they're trying to measure better by just understanding a better approach. These are some language considerations that I think everyone should start using. So you don't burn calories, you use nutrients, or you exchange material, or you use material, or you exchange nutrients, or use nutrients. But you use material too. You do have fuel. You can use it as a fuel, but it's a metabolite. It's a resource. You don't move by thermodynamics. Technically, you move by electrochemical dynamics. It's much more specific. And this whole idea of oxidation and reduction, I'll get into it in this next presentation. But I might take a break because this thing, I'm tired. I can't believe it's only 2:30. I'll get into it in this next presentation. But positive or negative augmentation. Instead of oxidation reduction, because right now oxidation and reduction doesn't require the use of oxygen. It has everything to do with electron transfer. And so I think we should keep oxygenation for things that combine with oxygen, and we should use positive and negative augmentation to talk about things that transfer electrons and are augmented in that way, because that's actually what's happening. And we'll get into that more in the second presentation. But thank you guys for watching. This is my outreach. Free at independent.academia.edu/Austin. You can get both of these books downloaded for free. Thank you very much. And so we come to the end. In the normal presentation here, I got some Q&A because I tried to go here. And then I clicked back here just to have this up so everyone could have it. I didn't really like that it was on the bottom, that's seeking PhD industry and business opportunities, because maybe that seemed more of a pitch. When they started asking me questions, I was really focused with them and not on my slides. And I kind of knew this was on the back of my head, but it wasn't on purpose as like an advertisement. I really wish I went back to the slides they were asking about. And some of them I did, but then I was just so tired that it was like they were asking me a question. I just wanted to answer the question. I didn't want to have to stop, turn, find it. And I felt like that would interrupt the flow. And it was just my first real presentation, so I was definitely stumbling a little bit. And then the last thing, I went like hand speed through this. I don't know if we're going to get to that today. I might do another recording. Maybe I'll go live later tonight and go back to this, because this goes into it a lot deeper. And so that's the one I was more prepared for, and that's the one I practiced. This one I just threw together. Another question I got was, where does sleep fit into the ICU model? So sleep in the ICU model, I guess, because sleep doesn't really fit into the calories in, calories out model either. It would be, I guess, calories out, kind of, because it's processing, but sleep would be more of like, we're talking about call, we're talking about use, and maybe disposal, because it's the body signaling using hormones to signal the body what to do, whatever it's doing in sleep, like whatever beneficial it's doing it through cellular signaling. And so it'll be important to understand how the absorption changes during sleep, or intake even. That's like digestion. That's like using the difference between casein and whey while you sleep, because that's the intake absorption during sleep. So I guess sleep is just kind of like a meta category that you would understand as a process of this. So I guess sleep is just kind of like a meta category that it's just part of the equation. I'm trying to think about where it fit in nicely, or how it fits in nicely with everything else, because if it's just a biological thing, it isn't working out, just a biological thing, well, that's an active signal. This is more of a passive signal, and a more of like a systematic it's like circadian rhythm. It's like, where does heartbeat fit into this? You know, it's like, it's not, it's a category error, I think, because this is just about measuring the nutrient specifically and what the nutrient is doing and how the nutrient is interacting with the cell. And so asking where does sleep fit into this, so that's going to be more of a meta category above this, where this is going to analyze how nutrients are affected during sleep or wake. I think that answers that the best. That answers it way better than I did before. Another important thing. So I had in here a thing that said about heart rate, and it said heart rate was to keep heart rate like 165 and everything, and to do the ventilator threshold training, like I kind of talked about a little bit. I don't know where that slide went, but they talked about the idea behind ventilator threshold training. And so ventilator threshold 1 is where your body stops. Your body is using both anaerobic and aerobic metabolism at the same time. Aerobic metabolism uses oxygen, anaerobic doesn't and produces lactic acid. Ventilator threshold 1 is the threshold where your body starts to use a mix of anaerobic and aerobic stores. I think there might be a better definition than the ones I'm using now. These are the ones I've used before, so I'm going to use them, and if they're wrong, I will correct myself in the future. But I believe it's when things are going to start getting mixed. And when you get to ventilator threshold 2, that's when your body is basically dependent on anaerobic work. Your body no longer has the ability to process all the metabolites that are being formed and all the byproducts. So the idea is like you will go from VTO max is above that of VT2, but you don't need to get up to VO2 max. So you go from ventilator threshold 1 to ventilator threshold 2 and then back down to ventilator threshold 1. So what you're doing is you're using oxygen, you're increasing the intensity, and then you're switching over to that oxygen anaerobic stage. So you're like, hey, the mitochondria not doing enough of a job. And you go all the way up until you can't process anymore, and you say, hey, mitochondria, you got to do that job, and you got to process all this other stuff too. And then you bring it back down, so then the mitochondria is like, okay, we're processing. You're like, yep, you let them process it, you let them work it out, you let them finish, then you bring that back up. One of the things that heart rate measures is your CO2 concentrations. As your heart rate goes up, the amount of CO2 in your body goes up. It's usually how it is. Adrenaline is like an exception. There's a couple hormones, I believe, that would be an exception to this, like norepinephrine. I think, or is it just epinephrine? I think epinephrine makes you, I gotta do so much more studying. I gotta get back into this. But blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so there's heart rate medications that will keep your heart rate low, even if under high stress activities. They'll keep it under that down low near like ventilator threshold 1. And that's due to this medication. So there's two questions that need to be asked about this medication. One, is your cell still getting the signal, the strenuous activity? Like, is it still receiving that same signal? Like, or does it need to have that carbon dioxide, that heart rate to spike? Two, if it is a lesser signal, to what degree? I'm sure that it's still getting some sort of signal to grow for the mitochondrial density, but to what degree is that lessened? Would be an important factor to know, because then that is good to know. Once we're using the heart rate medication, we're not using ventilator thresholds based on heart rate. We're going to have to use it based on some kind of mathematical equation, maybe based on fatigue. Maybe probably based on fatigue, on the ability to produce force, in the acceleration or deceleration of force generation, probably be the measurement instead of heart rate on what is intensity and what is not. And then correlating normal heart rate measurements to physical intensities will give us an estimated range of where we should be, like a range of perceived exertion, basically, but a more measured one that we can measure in recoverability would be the best way to measure mitochondrial capacity. Like if you do an effort and then your strength declines from there, and then how well your mitochondria can recover that effort strength. That's also neurological. That's also structural. So it would have to be low grade. I don't know. That would be interesting. It's interesting to think about. But these are the things that we got to start thinking about, because we're moving into a new age of exercise science and everything, guys. Because never burned a calorie in your life. And so check to see if I got any viewers. Because never burned a calorie in your life. I got an advertisement. So let's see. I got an advertisement. Yeah, I got a kick advertisement, so that's cool. But it's an hour long. That was this whole thing. Yeah, I got from Learning Quest. So next time I'll probably take a break right now, and then maybe we'll get into my OG presentation, one I'm much more familiar with. But if you stop by, thanks for stopping by. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching on YouTube. We're going to keep going. Got to understand, even if I don't say it right all the time, this is still true. Calories are not the measurement of thermodynamics. They're not the measurement of energy. We thought they were, and so we need to find better measurements. Thanks, guys. Bye.